everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm doing the revisit and review of the AiM MXK10 with the new firmware update. I had been testing the beta version for about a week or so now, and they finally released the public version, so that's the one I'm going to review. So I guess I'll get right down to it. I'm cruising in the new daytime mode screen. I don't know if you guys, how well you can see that. I personally prefer the dark screen from night mode, even when I'm cruising in the daytime. But this was something that people wanted, so they added it. So I'm going to do a quick little cruise, maybe make a pull, just to show you guys how I have the shift light programmed. And then I'm going to go back to the garage and I'll go over it off the bike in a nice cool environment, and I'll show you some programming that can be done on the laptop, because it is miserable out today. Hence the squidding with no gloves or anything. I'd rather get road rash than sweat, for all you gear Nazis out there. Little fun fact too, the mile per hour you see right there is being controlled by this GPS module. It is not using the ECU readout. So that is actual speed. And it's, I believe, a 10 hertz refresh rate. So that's 10 times a second that it refreshes to give you updated data. I'll do a quick little pull here to show you the shift light. How's about that bar end shake right there? That's what I get for making a pull on a bumpy road with the stabilizer essentially off and the bike not strapped at all. Even in second gear they get a little wacky. Alright, I'm gonna head back to the garage now and cool the hell off. Alright everybody, I'm back in the garage. That ride was absolutely miserable. If you notice, Eric's bike is back. I've already done most of the work to it. We're trying to source a carbon tail for that subframe we have right there, because it does not support the top hatch right here, or the cowl. A couple things I did to it while it's here. Put on a floating front rotor. I changed out to a fresh titanium exhaust system. I put on some fresh blingy Bonamici rear sets, which is my rear set of choice for most of my customer bikes. I find that they all fit well, they don't really cause any shifter problems, and they look pretty badass as well. We're going to be changing his gas cap to another one, but I need the OEM lower section because this replaces that, so I'm waiting for that to come in the mail. And I also put in some clutch springs and the clutch mod in the bike as well. We're not pulling the O-rings out of the chain because he does a lot of street riding, and if you notice, coming back over to my bike, there actually isn't a chain on it. I pulled the chain off before I started recording again, and it's over here. This is what it looks like. They move pretty easy without O-rings in them. The problem is they're not very good street chains. And by that I mean you are constantly cleaning and lubing the chain to the point where it's maddening. And if you want to keep it lubricated right, you have to make a mess of the bike. If you come over to Sonny's bike here, you can see there's a lot of extra grime and stuff in there. That gets cleaned constantly, yet it comes right back. Because you got to clean these chains up with some WD-40, something really liquidy, to get in behind the actual rollers to lubricate in there a little bit, because they seize up real easily with a little bit of dirt. But alright, let's get back over here to the dash. There's the dash back in it right now. I'm going to hook up my camera so I can go through the menu with you without holding the phone. Alright, so using my DSLR did not work out well because of the reflection, and it just does not pick up the image of this dash very well at all. Even my phone doesn't. For some reason, I don't know what it is, but it's really hard to pick up with a camera, so unfortunately, this phone and or my DSLR will not do this screen justice. So let's go ahead and fire it up right now and see what it starts like. There's my token image, which is programmable, by the way. You can make that say whatever you want. I believe it's like an 800 by 480 pixel count right there. This is the daytime dash background. I can switch that over to dark. First thing you're going to do, just like the stock dash, you're going to hit select, and that brings you into the menu. First we'll run down here and go into vehicle settings, and I'll show you what that's about. Alright, so you got power mode full, KBC is off, Kawasaki quick shifter up and down is disabled. However, I use race tools, so that doesn't matter. Launch control is set to 1, even though I don't use it. Braking is doesn't matter because this bike doesn't have ABS. Then you've got your traction control settings here. You can set both in the menu and like you normally could on the up and down arrows. So anyway, let's go over to preferences. We have display.
and it'll show you here. If you got road, which just changes what you actually display. I use the road setting because it makes more sense to me. Now if you go over to the theme, that changes it between this digital dash and the traditional analog style. I run the digital for some reason. I don't know why, I just kind of like it better, but that's entirely up to you guys. The color, this is in day mode. I prefer nighttime for all the time because I don't really need to see all of the information constantly, even during the day. And they do a pretty good job of showing you the visuals with the night background as well. But that's what it looks like with the night background there. Display speed is currently in GPS. Now it's in ECU, but I like GPS because I like real world speed. So let's head back over to GPS. All right, that's what it looks like there. It's hard to see on camera. The camera really just doesn't do it justice. Because I'm looking at it both in person and through the camera. It looks terrible through the camera, but it looks pretty damn good in person. So take all this with a grain of salt in terms of the quality of it. So anyway, let's go back into the menu. Alarms I haven't played with yet. I guess it'll probably flash a light if I imagine if it got under 10 volts and over 220 degrees Fahrenheit. Lap switch, I have that disabled. Supposedly there's a button. That's the road racing stuff. I haven't dabbled too much in that. I'll leave that up to you guys. Unit of measure, you can set that to miles per hour or kilometers an hour. Entirely up to you. Obviously I live in the States, so we go with miles per hour. Temperature, same, Fahrenheit versus Celsius. I'm going to stick with Fahrenheit. Let's go back. Date and time, that's pretty self-explanatory. The brightness, you can set manual, which is what I do. I like it bright all the time, and I leave it on night mode, but you can set that to auto. And the flickering that you see right there is not happening on my end. That's only because of the camera picking that up. And then you have Wi-Fi, which is basically on, off. And basically, I'll get to that in a little bit, but that's how the Race Studio software connects to it. These are, I have them all disabled, but you have the main odometer, which says 245 on the dash, and then the other ones are just trips. I don't log any of those, so I just have my odometer. This is the track manager. I haven't dabbled too much with it, but this tells you track info. It'll automatically pair to some tracks and stuff like that. That's how you do the lap timer if you're in track mode. Now, if you head over to system, this tells you your current numbers for your firmware versions, boot versions, stuff like that. That's the original version. The new one, come on, focus for me, please. Well, anyway, it says 2.27.83. That's the current firmware update for this one. I'd imagine this is going to be like this for a while because I think it's pretty good so far. So anyway, we're going to go to exit now, and that's your main menu here. Just like traditional, how it normally shows, you've got over here, the number 1 is the default traction control. For some reason, these Gen 5 ZX10s, man, you can't make them stay 0 every time you shut the ignition off. So all you do is click down, just like you would normally, and boom, it shuts off. Then next to that, you've got the power mode. This is coolant temp, that's battery voltage. Up top here, we've got RPM, and this is also a digital tach as well. Speedometer, the gear you're in. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. The clock's at the bottom right. I think the dash is pretty solid now. I wasn't a fan of it with the original shipping firmware because there were a lot of features, mostly just the shift light that really bothered me. It would come on at 10,000 RPM and the light would start blinking at 13,000 RPM, and the whole bar up here would just be blinking in your face and there was no way to turn it off. So talk about an epileptic seizure. But over here on the right side, you've got gas, you've got ABS, you've got hazard. Only the gas is lit up right now because this bike is low on fuel. You've got your blinker, you've got your high beam, and you've got your FI light. The FI light looks like an engine now instead of just a red light, or instead of just a yellow light. But alright, that's enough of the dash. Let's go over to the computer now and I'll show you the Race Studio software. Alright, so this is Race Studio 3. This is AiM software for all of their dashes. I'm just going to show you briefly the shift light because I haven't gone nuts with this software yet. I've really only used it to configure the shift light, and I'll show you briefly how that works. So you're going to go up here, which is the little gear, which is your configurations tab. Then you see over here MXK10 EJR Performance. This is my dash. So we're going to go over to the gear again. We're going to open this configuration for editing. And then over here you have CAN expansions, which can actually add some extra features to the dash, like you can do a full-time AFR reading on the dash at all times, which is pretty cool. But I don't have any of the extensions for that yet, so for now we're just going to go over to shift lights and alarms. And now you see, here's the dash, and let's go click on the gear again, and now we have gear-to-gear shift lights, which is amazing. That's a feature I've always wanted out of a factory bike, the ability to set shift lights per gear. So if you notice here, I have a Gen 4 transmission, so these bikes have a really long 1 to 2 shift extension. So if you notice, I have it 100 RPM higher on the shift light for the 1-2 shift, just so I can rev it out a little bit more and come back into second gear a little stronger. And the rest of them, the shift light comes on at 14,000 RPM. Now, if you notice in 6th gear, it's a little different. If you come over here, by the way, every single one of these lights is one of the LEDs on the dash from left to right. So if you notice, they're all, it might be hard to see on camera, but in 6th gear, I have all 10 lights go red at 14,300 RPM, basically telling me that, hey, this runs about over, let out. Now, another pretty cool feature that I have it currently set to is that if you go up here, it says the LED stays on if its threshold is exceeded, meaning so that, okay, let's go to 1st gear at 11,750 RPM. When the first light comes on, when the 2nd threshold is reached, the previous light would stay on. I have it set so that every single light turns off when the next threshold is reached. So essentially, it'll be on, and then it'll go on, and each individual one will turn off when it goes to the next one. So it looks like just one LED coming on at once, and then when it gets to white, all of the lights blink, and that's when you shift. That's how I currently have it set up on mine, and that's kind of how I like it. Now, anybody else can do it their own special way. This is just my personal preference. And then we have an activate simulation here, and it's going to run you how it looks through all 6 gears. So 1st gear, boom, shift. 2nd gear, boom, shift. 3rd gear, shift. 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 6th gear, boom, all lights are on. Alright, now for the sake of showing you guys how you would upload this shift light into the dash, simply go over to the bike, turn it on. I don't have to show you that because I think you guys can figure out how to turn your bike on. So go key on ignition. Give it a second or so for the Wi-Fi on the dash to activate. Alright, now we're going to go over to Wi-Fi, which is this little satellite tab. You're going to see my dash right here. I'm going to connect to it. It's going to take a second or two for it to actually populate. So let's close this for now. Well, first we'll save it. So once it actually connects, it is a little lazy, the Wi-Fi on this device, I'll say that. But for the most part, I really can't complain because I'm not connecting to the Wi-Fi very often. So okay, now it's trying to establish connection, and then okay, now it's actually connected. So now we're going to go back into the dash shift light. We're going to open this configuration, back to shift lights, and basically once you get here, you're going to go up to here where it says transmit, and you're going to click on it. And now you're going to see the green bar moving. Once that's complete, your dash will shut off and then turn back on again, and at that point the upload is now complete. Should give me a warning here, but just like that, boom, okay, we're done. It's now updated. The dash just restarted, so I'm going to shut it off. And that basically wraps up the software in terms of how far I've gone into it. I've really only dabbled with the shift light. This is more of a circuit type software. So if you're going around a track, you can get track data right here. I'll go to that tab real quick just to show you. Here's their track data. But I don't use any of this stuff because I'm a straight line guy. Alright guys, that's going to go ahead and wrap up this video. I hope you liked it. It was a little slower paced, nothing crazy going on, but a lot of guys wanted some more information on that AiM MXK10 dash right there. You open up your laptop, you connect via to it Wi-Fi, you change the shift light or whatever else you want to change, and really that's about it. That's how you would update the firmware as well. You download it through the software, and then you send it right to the dash. You have to connect to the dash directly. Alright guys, you know what to do. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.